Odinaka sat in the middle of the crowded market, a pitiful sight to behold. People stared at him with a mix of disgust and pity. Odinaka was eating his own defecation and running around raving mad. This happened every Ngwo market day. The young man would go crazy in the village every time it was Ngwo market day. He was cursed, and also most nights, while others slept soundly, he would be running around the whole village, screaming that monsters were chasing him. He was very miserable, and during any sane moments he had, when the madness was not disturbing him, people would flock around him, demanding he pay back the money he owed them. Odinaka's life was terrible, and he had thought of killing himself many times. On this particular day, he made up his mind to do so. He climbed the tallest mountain in Umoji village and jumped. As he landed, his body was intact. Frustrated, he immediately saw evil spirits laughing at him, telling him that he could not kill himself, that they would never allow him to die until he paid his debts. Odinaka shouted and cried, "Biko Balaram, please forgive me," he shouted. How did Odinaka get himself into this miserable situation? Sit back and enjoy the story of Odinaka, the man who borrowed money from everyone in the village, including the evil spirits. In the village of Umoji, in ancient Igbo land, lived a very wealthy old farmer called Chief Udala. Chief Udala had lived a life of hard work and tenacity. He enjoyed his hard work by having beautiful wives. He had 7 wives because he needed many children to help out on the farm. Chief Udala had many farmlands across the village of Umoji. No other person apart from the Igwe of the village had as many farmlands as Chief Udala. He was respected in the village for his hard work and success. His first wife, Lolo Udala, had 2 grown-up sons for him, Ikechukwu and Odinaka. He had other children from his other wives, and Chief Udala had just married another wife, Amaka, bringing the number of his wives to 7 in total. Amaka, his new bride, was very beautiful and young. Ikechukwu was just like his father, very hardworking and diligent. He was also very interested in trading and making good profits from their farm produce, especially their yams. One day, Ikechukwu called out to his father, Chief Udala, and told him that he was taking the large tubers of yam they harvested to a faraway market to make better sales. His father wished him well, and Ikechukwu left. Now he was expected to be away for 2 weeks, but 2 weeks turned into 2 months, and Chief Udala became worried. Kedebe Nwamono, where is my son Ikechukwu? He asked himself one day, sitting in front of his hut. A search party was organized by the village, but to no avail. Odinaka joined in the search and seriously searched for his elder brother because the both of them were close, but Ikechukwu was nowhere to be found. This got Chief Udala so worried that the old man fell ill, so ill that he could no longer go to the farm. Odinaka was supposed to lead his younger siblings and his father's wives to the farm, but he was not the hardworking type. He used the excuse of searching for his brother to avoid farm duties. The other wives took charge and went to the farm, while Chief Udala lay sick in bed, worried about the whereabouts of his Obala, his first son, Ikechukwu. Instead of Odinaka stepping up to take on the role of leadership and guiding his younger siblings to the farm, he preferred to spend his days in the local bars, indulging in palm wine. Odinaka was a chronic womanizer, renowned for his charm and wit. He was handsome, with a chiseled jawline, deep-set eyes that twinkled with mischief, and a broad, infectious smile. His charisma made women flock to him, but the problem was that he had no money. Chief Odala, despite his wealth, managed his resources frugally and believed in the virtue of hard work. He did not give his sons any money freely. They had to earn whatever they had. Odinaka, lazy and lackadaisical, was not interested in earning his keep. One day, in a desperate bid for quick cash, he tried to sell the farm produce harvested by his younger siblings. However, he was caught by Chief Odala's other wives, who lambasted him and called him names.
"You lazy oaf! How dare you try to sell the fruits of our labor?"
One of the wives scolded, her voice sharp with disdain.
"Unuhi! You thief!"
Another of Chief Odala's wives spat out in disgust. Chief Odala, lying weak on his sickbed, summoned Odinaka and warned him sternly, "If you ever try such a thing again, you will be banished from this home." Odinaka, still not wanting to toil in the fields, concocted a plan. With Ikechukwu nowhere to be found and their father bedridden, Odinaka assumed it was only a matter of time before Chief Odala passed away. As the eldest, he would inherit all his father's farmland. Odinaka's mind wandered to Amaka, his father's youngest wife. She was a vision of beauty, with her smooth dark skin, almond-shaped eyes, and a figure that left many men in the village spellbound. Her voice was like a melody, and her grace unmatched. In his fantasies, Odinaka saw himself not only inheriting the farmlands, but also claiming Amaka as his own. "Once father is gone, everything will be mine," he thought with a sly grin. Driven by this vision, Odinaka set out to borrow money from anyone who would lend it to him. Using his future inheritance as collateral, his charm and persuasive skills helped him borrow money from many people in Umoji village, convincing them that once he inherited the lands after his father's death, he would sell some of the lands to pay them back with huge interest. The villagers loved this and they lent him money. Odinaka borrowed 200 cowries from Wachuku, the bricklayer. Okonkwo, the carpenter, lent him 100 cowries. Mbojiso, the palm wine seller, sold palm wine to him on credit. And even Mama Ebeka, the merchant fish seller, gave him a loan of 500 cowries. In the evenings, Odinaka would sit in the palm wine bars, a cup of palm wine in his hand, offering free palm wine to anyone who would listen to his jokes and stories of how wealthy he was going to be when his father dies. He spends lavishly on drinks and women, creating a facade of wealth. He would often be seen in the company of village beauties, whispering sweet nonsense into their ears. "You are looking radiant tonight, Amaka," Odinaka would say whenever he encountered Amaka, his father's new wife, his eyes lingering on her seductive figure. Amaka would smile politely, aware of his intentions, but maintaining her dignity. She was well aware of Odinaka's reputation, yet there was something about his confidence that intrigued her. Odinaka had borrowed money from almost everyone in the village. The villagers were wary and exasperated by his constant demands. They got tired and bored with his sweet tongue, and refused to lend him another cowrie. Desperate for more money to sustain his lavish lifestyle, Odinaka visited a native doctor, a mischievous spiritualist known for his cunning ways. The native doctor, sitting cross-legged in his dimly lit hut, listened to Odinaka's plea. "Biko, help me," Odinaka begged. "Ask the gods if they can lend me money. I will pay back tenfold once I inherit my father's lands." The mischievous spiritualist, Odumodu by name, seeing an opportunity to teach the arrogant young man a lesson, handed him a feather. "Take this feather," Odumodu instructed. "It will lead you to the deepest parts of the forest, where you will meet your ancestors. They will decide whether to lend you the money." Odinaka clutched the feather tightly, feeling a strange energy pulsating through it. As he walked into the forest, the feather floated out of his hand, and floating in the air, it pointed the way to Odinaka. The trees grew thicker, the shadows darker, and the sounds of the forest more eerie. Soon he found himself in a clearing where ominous spirits with glowing eyes surrounded him. One spirit, towering above the rest, spoke in a voice that rumbled like thunder.
"Odinaka, you seek wealth from the spirits."
"Yes, please, I came to borrow money. I will pay back," Odinaka said timidly. The spirits laughed hysterically.
"A man coming to borrow money from his dead ancestors."
The tall spirit asked rhetorically in a mocking way. "Well, here is a bag of cowries. You must pay it back in 1 year's time or face the dire consequences," the spirit said to him in a stern voice. Odinaka accepted the bag eagerly, believing that in 1 year his ailing father would be dead and he would inherit all the lands. The spirits vanished, leaving Odinaka alone with the enchanted bag of cowries. To his amazement, no matter how much he spent, the cowries in the bag never depleted. It was as if the bag was inexhaustible. With newfound wealth, Odinaka spent money like water. He organized grand parties, drank copious amounts of palm wine, and surrounded himself with beautiful women. He was the richest man in Umoji, and his arrogance grew with each passing day. One morning, a creditor named Okato came to Odinaka's hut, demanding repayment. "I want my 10 cowries. Nyebegom, give me my money," Okato insisted. Odinaka laughed, his voice filled with contempt. "Okato, you are very funny. So you came to my place this morning with these stunted legs of yours just because of the 10 cowries you lent me. People who lent me 100 cowries have not come this early. Wait until my father dies. I will pay you then," he said, and left Okato standing in front of his hut. Odinaka's greed and arrogance knew no bounds. Even though he now had a supernatural bag of cowries that always filled with money, Odinaka refused to pay back his loans, but he paid for all that he consumed presently because the villagers refused to lend him more money. And when people ask after the money they lent him, he tells them, "Nnamawubogo, my father is not dead yet. When he dies, I will sell some of the farmlands and pay you the money with interest as agreed." Odinaka used his wealth to woo Amaka, his father's youngest wife, whose beauty was unmatched. Despite knowing it was a taboo for a man to sleep with his father's wife, Odinaka pursued her relentlessly. "Amaka, you deserve better than an old sick man," Odinaka would whisper, his eyes glinting with desire. "Be with me, I will give you the world." Amaka, though initially resistant, was eventually swayed by Odinaka's wealth and charm. They began a secret affair, hidden from the prying eyes of the villagers. Odinaka's audacity knew no limits, and he reveled in his forbidden love. Meanwhile, Chief Udala lay on his sickbed, tormented by worry and grief over his missing son, Ikechukwu. Chief Udala's health deteriorated rapidly, and he was oblivious to the betrayal unfolding within his own household. The villagers noticed Odinaka's sudden wealth and grew suspicious. They whispered among themselves, wondering how a lazy, lackadaisical man could amass such fortune overnight. But Odinaka paid no attention to their gossip. He was too consumed by the pleasure his enchanted bag of cowries provided. Exactly 1 year after Odinaka received the enchanted bag of cowries, a surprise awaited the village of Umoji. Ikechukwu, long thought lost, returned to the village. The news of his arrival spread like wildfire, and the villagers gathered to welcome him with open arms and praises. Chief Udala, upon hearing that his first son had returned, leaped from his sickbed with a newfound vigor and ran to embrace Ikechukwu. Tears streamed down his face as he held his son tightly. "Nwami Ikechukwu, you are back," he exclaimed, his voice choked with emotion. Ikechukwu, equally emotional, apologized for his prolonged absence. "Father, I am sorry for being away for so long. I traveled to distant lands after completing the business transaction to discover new markets and business opportunities. I sold the yam products I had, started trading, and made a substantial profit. I have also established trade contacts that will help us sell more yams and earn better money." Ikechukwu then showed his father the bag of money he had earned during his 2-year journey. Chief Udala's heart swelled with pride as he inspected the wealth his son had accumulated. The sickness that had plagued Chief Udala vanished in an instant, replaced by overwhelming joy. Meanwhile, Odinaka, who had spent the night in a palm wine bar and was too drunk to return home, woke up the next day with a pounding headache. As he stumbled back to his father's compound, he saw a large crowd gathered. A grin spread across his face as he thought, "Perhaps father has finally passed away, and now I can sell the lands and pay off my debts and marry Amaka, whether the villagers approve or not." However, as he approached, he saw his father looking healthier than ever, standing proudly next to Ikechukwu. Odinaka's heart sank, and he felt a wave of disappointment wash over him. The shock was too much for him to bear, and he fainted on the spot. When Odinaka regained consciousness, he found himself lying on a mat with Ikechukwu sitting beside him. The two brothers were alone. "Odinaka," Ikechukwu began, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Why did you faint upon seeing me? Was it out of joy, or because you have borrowed money from everyone in the village, thinking you would inherit all father's lands?" Odinaka's eyes filled with tears as he realized his predicament. "Ikechukwu, I didn't know what else to do, he stammered. I am so disappointed in you, Odinaka, Ikechukwu said, shaking his head. Go and find a way to pay your debts. I am alive. Father is alive. And we are not selling any land to pay for your foolishness. Odinaka wept bitterly as Ikechukwu walked away, leaving him to ponder his fate. The next day, his troubles escalated further. The mischievous native doctor, Odomodu, who had given him the feather, arrived at the compound, seeking Odinaka. Panic-stricken Odinaka ran and hid inside a large clay pot at the back of the compound. Suddenly, Odomodu appeared right inside the pot, squeezed tight with Odinaka, and with his eyes gleaming with a sinister light, he said, Odinaka, you have no place to hide. The spirit's 1-year duration is over, and you must repay your debt. Odinaka trembled with fear as Odomodu vanished, leaving him alone in the clay pot. The weight of his foolishness and arrogance bore down on him. How could he possibly repay all the people he owed money to? And worse still, how would he settle his debts with the spirits? The once jovial and carefree Odinaka now faced the harsh reality of his actions. The year had come full circle, and the time of reckoning was upon Odinaka. The enchanted bag of cowries that had brought him unimaginable riches has now become a nightmare. It was on a busy Unko day when Odinaka, in a fit of temporal insanity induced by the spirits, ate his own defecation. The villagers, horrified and bewildered, watched as Odinaka's mind unraveled each Unko market day. A flood of shame usually overwhelms him. He hated his life, and he made up his mind to kill himself and save himself the constant harassment from the spirits and the people of Umoji, to whom he owed lots of money. This led him to attempt suicide by climbing and throwing himself off the highest mountain in Umoji, only to discover the cruel twist of fate. The evil spirit that he borrowed money from has made him immortal until he repaid his debts to the spirits. Life was truly miserable for Odinaka. Ikechukwu, Odinaka's elder brother, couldn't stand seeing his family name brought to shame by his brother's madness and the money he owed the villagers. I will not let this disgrace continue, he muttered to himself. Determined to save Odinaka, Ikechukwu sought out the mischievous native doctor Odomodu, who had initially led Odinaka to the spirits. Approaching the native doctor's shrine, Ikechukwu was resolute. The old man, sitting amidst his charms and portion, looked up and smirked. What brings you here, Ikechukwu? I want to know how to free my brother from the curse of the spirits, Ikechukwu replied. Odomodu chuckled. For that knowledge, you must give me half of your inheritance, he said. Ikechukwu laughed in return and produced a bottle of water from Mmiri Ogwaka, a river known for its purity and sanity. Ikechukwu looked hard at Odomodu and said, "This water is from Ogwaka River, a river accessible to only those with pure hearts. I went there and got this myself. Legend says that if water from Ogwaka touches a wicked man, he will suffer a painful death. Do you want to test that theory?" Ikechukwu asked mockingly. The native doctor's eyes widened with fear. "No need for that," Odomodu stammered. "Take this feather. It will lead you to the spirits who made a pact with your brother." Following the feather's guidance, Ikechukwu ventured deep into the forest until he arrived at the spirit realm. The spirits appeared before him, their forms both terrifying and magnificent.
What do you seek, mortal?
They asked. I seek to free my brother from his debt, Ikechukwu declared.
You mean your foolish brother that came to borrow money from the spirits?
They asked derisively.
Well, to do so, you must either repay the debt or fight our strongest spirits.
They replied. How much does he owe? Ikechukwu inquired. 100,000 cowries, the spirits answered. Ikechukwu was stunned. How could Odinaka spend such enormous amounts in just 1 year? He thought. Realizing that repayment was impossible because 100,000 cowries was a lot of money that they don't have, he opted to fight the strongest spirit. A monstrous being emerged from the shadows, towering over Ikechukwu. The battle was fierce, but Ikechukwu fought with courage and strength, ultimately defeating the creature. The spirits, impressed by his strength, offered him a bag of cowries if he would agree to fight his own chi, the personal god believed by the Igbos to reside within every human being. As Ikechukwu pondered the offer, he recalled his father's proverb, a man would be foolish to fight his chi. It had always been a figurative warning, but here it was literal. Ikechukwu looked at the spirits and declined. I have come to free my brother, and I have done so. Let my brother live in peace. The spirits, though disappointed, admired Ikechukwu's wisdom.
You have indeed paid your brother's debt,
they said.
Go, your brother is free from us.
Returning to the village, Ikechukwu found Odinaka shouting for joy. Freed from the torments of the spirits, Odinaka, unaware of his brother's sacrifice, felt alive and liberated. Ikechukwu called him into the hut and recounted all that had transpired with the spirits in the deep forest. Odinaka knelt before his brother, tears of gratitude streaming down his face. Daalụ nwanne m, thank you, my brother. I don't know how to repay you. I have helped you with the spirits, but you must help yourself in the physical world, Ikechukwu replied sternly. Our farm at Umudim in the next village is yours to cultivate. You will work there alone, and I will sell the yams that you harvest to repay the villagers you owe money. Also, the atrocity you committed with Amaka, our father's wife, is a grave taboo. You must stay in Umudim until father finds it in his heart to forgive you. Odinaka cried, but accepted his fate. Determined to change his life for the better, he packed his bags and set out for Umudim. As he walked the lonely road, feeling dejected, a sweet voice called out to him. It was Amaka running towards him. She ran and stood close to him and said,
I have no place in your father's house anymore.
She said, tears in her eyes.
He has sent me away and asked for my bride price to be returned. I don't know what the future holds, especially now in my condition.
She placed her hands on her belly, and Odinaka understood. Placing his hand on her shoulder, he said, we will face this together. They walked towards the farm at Umudim, the sun setting behind them, casting long shadows on the horizon. As the day faded into the night, a sense of hope and determination filled the air, for even in the darkest of the times, the dawn of a new beginning awaited.